Hello friends, this is the first video to show you how to build this CRUD app step by step. Okay, so here is the preview of this application, and today's video I'm going to show you how to build the first part. It's basically we're trying to create this application, build the basic structure of this application, and we read data from the backend. Basically, the backend is a spreadsheet like this, and we just show the users a table like this with some paginations. And here is our target today. Okay, so let me close all of these tabs because we are trying to do this from scratch. So first of all, let's create a new file, and this is a standalone Google Apps Script project, so not a Google Sheet, but also you can use Google Sheet as a project file. So I'm going to rename this file, and LC010, so this is a 10th live coding video. No success. Okay, so I renamed the file. So the file right now is on my root drive. It's not in this folder. I'm going to remove it here later, maybe. So basically to build a web application like this, all right, we need to use a database, all right, and this is our main project here. So let's first rename this file. I prefer to rename this file as app. So basically this is our main file, and I also need to create some other files. So the first file we create here is a script file, and I like to create it as an API. So because I want to separate some functions, so I basically put all the functions which are going to be called from the front end in this api.js file. Like you want to submit some data to our database, we are going to do a post request to the API. So that's why I created a function here called API. And for other functions, I put it here, all right? And we also need to have an index HTML file here. And I started with HTML. Maybe for this one, just call it index. Okay, so this is our main file. It's going to be used for the for our web application. So for now, let's put h1 here. Web app. So this is basically the structure of the web application. So to create a web application, we need to have a function called toGet. And in this function, we're going to return an HTML output. So here, I'm going to use a function called HTML create template. So basically, I'm going to create a template from this index.html file, all right? And I'm going to evaluate, and I'm going to set a title with app name. App name right now is not defined, so let's define this app name here. Let's say CRUD app with view and Bootstrap and gas. So this is going to be the title, and it's also the app name, and then we're going to set the X-frame options mode here. So this is going to enable, if you want to use this application in an iframe, so you need to set up these properties here. Basically, you need to enable this X-frame options mode here. All right, I think that's enough for us to deploy this as a web app now. So let's try it. And here, let's try to do a new deployment and select web application. So for the first revision here, I'm going to call it dev because I'm using this revision for all the development here. So you can rename it. And here, I'd like to select anyone. So basically, anyone can access this web application and deploy it. It's gonna need a while. So after the deployment, yes, you should have a URL here, right? But we don't want to use this right now. We can use this in this test development here. We have a URL and with dev. So this is the URL we'd like to use when we're trying to develop a new web app. Okay, so here as you can see, we got the data from this index file. So right now this is just a web app like this. All right, so basically right now the basic structure for the web application is created. Okay, so we'd like to include some other stuff like the view library, right? And we also need to bring the Bootstrap in this application. So to do that, so let's go to vue.js.org and we can, so basically we have some versions for Vue. So if you want to use Vue 3, you can go to here. You can use Vue 2. I think the Vue 2 is more stable right now. So if you want to use Vue 3, you can use Vue 3. It's not a big deal. They're very similar, I have to say. And in this example, let's just use Vue 2, and we use this get started. And here, you can check this installation. We can use this CDN here. We can grab this script tag here. So here you have two different versions here, I think. And so one of them is for the development and one is for the production. So for this, so when you're trying to develop it, you can use the developed version, and after you want to basically to push your application to production, you can update. Okay, you can update this script tag here. So let's copy this. Let's copy it and go to our index file here. No, let's just create a new file. Okay, so let's rename it view / JavaScript, JS for JavaScript, and index. So this file is going to be our main JavaScript file, okay? And I put this link here. This is the Vue library. This script tag is for the Vue library, okay? I added it here. And this file, I'm going to link this file to our index file. Okay, so I here link it here. So we have a function here called link, which is not created. So this function is going to be created at the backend. Okay, I'm going to put it in this app.js file. So right now it's not created. And link which file? View JS index.html. So I'm going to link all of this file, basically this file, into this index file. Okay, and I'm going to go to this app.js file. I'm going to create this function called link, and which takes a file name as a parameter. And this function is going to return HTML service dot create template from file, so the file name, right, and evaluate and get content. Okay, so this is from this function we're going to link this file into this file, okay, and insert the content here, right? So this is how we do the link, and let's test if this is working for Vue. If you don't know Vue, this might be a little bit difficult for you to understand it. So basically, I will create a div and give the ID here called app, okay? So basically, the Vue library, we're going to handle all the front end, all the elements here, and all the content we're going to be wrapped in this div called with ID app, okay? So basically, in this index file, we don't actually need to write any HTML here. We just only need to create a div called with the ID app, and this ID also can be changed to any other ID. Okay, so by default we used app like this. Right, so this is about the Vue configuration, and if you check the document here, this is about the installation. And if you go to the get started, and you can copy this line of code and test it. Okay, I'm going to copy this line of code, and I go to my Vue.js index.html file, and I'll put it here. So I'm changing this var to const. This is going to create a Vue instance, okay? And we have a data object here, and we have a message called hello Vue, and we can output this to our app. So let's say we have h1 here. We can access this message. So I put a message here. So in this way, I should have a h1 with a message. But this message is basically a dynamic data which is defined here. This message is a hello Vue. So right now, if I reload this page, it's not a web app anymore. It should be hello Vue. Okay, it's going to need a while to update the value here, because Vue, we're going to update it like this way. Okay, so this is how Vue works. So as you can see, right now the Vue is working. All right, so let's bring the Bootstrap in. So Bootstrap. I like to use the latest version, so it's I think it's Bootstrap 5. And we also use the CDN links here to bring it to our application. So for the CSS, we just copy this line of code here and go to the index file, and in the header, you can paste the link for the CSS, okay? And this is for the JavaScript. So you have two options. You can either pick this one or this one. So let's try this one. And put it here after the CSS. So this part is only for the Bootstrap. Okay. So if I like to use Bootstrap, it's very easy to use. So if I like to add a class here for this div, for this div app, okay, I like to add a container class here. This is a Bootstrap class. So if I add a container here, so basically it's going to wrap the content a little bit, give some margin here. So if I reload the page, the font should be changed and the margin, as you can see. So we have some margin here, right? And here you cannot see it right now. And the font is changed, and now it's Bootstrap. So if I'd like to put some class here, Bootstrap class here, so let's say maybe if I let me check if I can remember. So I changed the text color to primary. Not sure if this is correct class for the color, but let's try it. So I changed to primary because the primary color in Bootstrap right now is blue. Okay, so that's why this color is changed to blue. So far, we bring the Vue.js in our application, and we also bring the Bootstrap into our application, and we can focus on the content and what kind of stuff we're trying to build in this application. So this is very important. That's the most important part of this application. And about this video, this is basically the structure where you can start to build your application. Okay, let's go through it just to make sure you can understand this part, because this is very important. You need to make sure all of this setup is correct, and then you can move on to the next part. Okay, so let's start from here. So this do-get is basically like a handler function. Every time somebody visits your website, it's going to call this function. So if you check the backend here in these executions, so every time I reload the page, this function is called, okay, is invoked. All right, so this is why we do have a function like this, as you can see here. So this is so if I reload the page, we are going to have a new record, as you can see here, function do-get, and it was called from the web app, okay? And if we got some errors here, you're going to see some errors here. So it's completed, and the page is loaded here. All right, so this is the function, and this must be the do-get function, okay? So this is why we have a function here. And this function is going to link the files because we don't want to write all of our code in one single file. So that's why we needed this function to link different files together, okay? And for now, we only used this once. We linked our vue.js.index file to here, okay? So this is our HTML file, and this is our script. And in this script file, we have a script tag, which is basically to the Vue library, okay? And this is our own Vue, our own script. And to use this Vue library, okay, we create a new instance, Vue instance here, okay? And here, this element is basically point to the ID, to point to this div with ID app. So if here you have another app like gas, and you need to change this to gas, okay? So change it back to app, and this is also app. Okay, so this is the basic structure. If you are trying to use Vue.js, Bootstrap, and Google Apps Script to build a web application. And then let's go to our main part of the video. So basically, I'm trying to read the data, okay, from this tab, this file, and display it to the users. Okay, so this is our main task or main goal today, and the main target like this. So to do that, first of all, I like to prefer creating the backend here. So we need to have a function. Okay, we need to have a function. This function looks like an API. Okay, so let's say get. I'm going to rename it get items. So this get items, right now we only have a customer, okay, or maybe get items. So you may have multiple tabs here, right? You may have different tabs here like that. So I want to define this function more general, okay? So I pass a parameter here called sheet name here. Basically, this sheet name is point to, if you have two tabs here, you can get customers, maybe you have users, maybe you have a user tab here like that. And you also can use this function to get users. So that's my idea to do it. And I'm going to pass another parameter called page size. So basically, if you have a lot of record in your database, you don't want to put them at once, okay? So I'm going to pass a page size. Let's say the page, but by default, let's set the page size to 15, okay? And we're also going to have a page number or just a page. So by default is page 1. Okay. And also we need to link. We need to get the ID. So basically, because our project is not in a Google Sheet, so we need to know which Google Sheet is our database. So let's say database ID. So handle like this. So let's say this is our database ID. Okay, I just copied the ID from this URL, as you can see. So this is our database ID, and we can go back to this function here. Maybe I'd like to create a class to it. Okay, it will going to be better to handle the, let's call it API. Okay, so we have an API class here. So let's do a construct function here. This app, and maybe this name equal to app name. Okay, and this app equal to spreadsheet app. This dot database equal to this dot app dot open file by ID and the database ID. Okay, so this database basically is our spreadsheet. I'm going to open this database here in our construct function, and we can use it later in our script. And here we're going to define our function to get items. And here we also have the basically the table name or sheet name and page size by default, let's say 15, and page, let's say first page. Okay, so this is our function. So const worksheet equal to this dot database get sheet by name, and this is the sheet name, right? And if we didn't find any worksheet with this name, we just return the empty array, okay? Because this worksheet name cannot be found in our database. We also can return an error message, but right now, let's just return an empty array. So basically, no items is returned. Okay, so in case we cannot find this worksheet. And if we do find the worksheet, let's get the headers and values from the worksheet.getDataRange and get values. So basically, I assume our database is always like this. Okay, we have a header at the row 1, and all the other records are the items. Okay, so this is a format we are using here. Where is my code? So headers is the first element, and the rest of them are the values, or we can call it items. So this is the headers, this is items or records. Maybe records is better for you to understand. So basically in a database, this is your header of the database, and this is all the items or records in your database. Okay, so let's try to handle these headers a little bit, because if you want to, I want to make them all to lowercase and remove trim the spaces just in case somebody put some space here. Okay, so let's create a function to handle the headers, and this function I'd like to rename it create keys. So basically all of this is going to be a key. Okay, and pass the headers here. I'm going to return headers and the map header. So basically I'm going to header to string trim to lowercase. Maybe just trim it, just to make sure all the headers don't have a space. All right. So this is our function to create key. So let's get the keys. Const keys equal to headers this.create keys headers. Okay, so in this way we have the keys from we create a keys from the header, right? And another stuff, we need to slice the record. Okay, const const items equal to record dot slice. Let's say this is a start. Const start index. So basically we have a page here, we have a page size here. So our start index should be page multiply page size. So if this is first page, we start from 0, right? So let's -1. So if this is the first page, we start from 0. And if this is second page, that means we start from 15, right? And if this is third page, we start from 30. Okay, so this is start index. And we slice this record from the start index, and the end position is going to be start index plus page size. So if the start index is 0, right, we end with 15. So that's basically 0 to 15. But this 15 is not, 15 is excluded. Okay, so that's in this way we get 15 items from the list. All right. So this is a slice of items, and we're going to. So if I console.log these items, let me show you what I'm doing here. Function test const app API. You know what? Let's do an API here. Const API equal to new API console function test. So API.get items, customer, page size. By default we have page size 15 and page 1, so we don't need to pass any. So let's try to run this test function. So you can see we got the data from the first one to 15th, right? So that's 15 records. But right now, as you can see here, the data is a two-dimensional array. So I want to convert this array to an object with ID 1 or name, description, email, phone, like that. Okay. So let's create a function called create item object, and with the item here, so this item is going to be an array. Okay, so here we can return, this is a list of items, right? So here I think I need to pass the keys here, or maybe keys values const item is an object, and keys for each key, and index, that's just item key equal to values values index. Okay, this is the value, this is the keys. Okay, and I'm going to return this item object. So this way, let's try to do this like, so I'm going to convert all the items into a list of item object. Okay, the const. Maybe I can do it here with a map function. The map. So item and this dot create item object, and I'm going to pass the keys. So the keys, which is here, and the values is going to be this item, or let's just rename this item to values. So if I try to console.log items, let's try to test it. So as you can see here, right now our items is object, and we have the ID, we have the name, we have the description, we have the email, we have the phone, and we have all of them here. So this is what we are looking for. Okay, so this is the function to get items. And I also want to, so here I'd like to return something here. So first of all, we're going to return the items, right? And I want to return the count of pages. So let's say pages, because we have a record about 100 record here. Actually 99, okay. So how many pages do we have here? We can use a function here called mass seal, and we're going to get the count of the items, which is values, length, not values, records, record length. And I'm going to, so basically divide it by the page size, and this is going to return the pages, okay. And we also can return the page size and the current page. Basically, this is about the page information. And here, you know what, I'd like to return an error here. So let's say throw new error, and let's say sheet name was not found in the database. So basically, if this worksheet was not found, I'm going to throw an error and tell the users, let's say we have a user, maybe our password, maybe a client. I maybe want to get the client data, so let's try to test it. It's going to throw me an error. Okay, so basically client was not found in the database. And let's try to do it for customer and test it. This looks like we get the items if we have to console the log. Let's try to run it again. Okay, so we got the items, we got the pages, we have 7 pages, page size is 15, right? And the first page is 1. So if I like to get the page by, let's say we have page size, let's say it's 10, let's just put a 10 here, it's fine. And the first page. So we now have the pages to 10, and the page size is maybe 10 items per page. Okay, so this is how we use this function. And I think for now this function is enough for us to handle the backend stuff, and the only thing we need to do is here is to define the function for the backend, so for the front end, sorry. So get items. So this function is going to take 2. I think going to take object here, maybe take data. and a const. So this data is going to be a string. It is a string for a JSON object, okay? And in this data object, we have a sheet name, page size, and a page equal to JSON dot and parse data, or I'm going to call it JSON data. Make it easier for you to understand. So this JSON data is going to be passed from the front end, and here we're going to parse this JSON data and grab the sheet name, page size, and page. Okay, and this then now we get the items. Let's const items equal to API dot get items. So here we need to pass the sheet name, page size, and page to this function, and return. We need to string file this data, okay? Or we just call it data. So this is the data we get from the backend, okay? And this is the data we string file the data and pass it back to return it back to the front end. Okay, so this is how we do it. And right now I think the backend is ready and we can start to build the front end. So for the front end, I'd like to do something like, so let's say we have an app name. So let's define a name here. Maybe let's copy this name here. So this value is at the backend. You cannot use it at the front end, okay? But we have a way to use it. No, we cannot use it here like this. So let's define it here with the same name. So this is the name. So I'd like to put basically I'd like to put the app name here. Okay, so I just changed the name. So this is our app name, and I'd like to add a margin y with 4. So basically add a margin to this h1. I'd like to get rid of this message, and I'd like to define another parameter called loading. So in this way we know if this is loading, this page is loading or not. Default value is false. And we'd like to define the page variable here. So the page by default is 1, and the page size by default is 15, and pages, let's say 1 by default, and we also have items. By default is an empty array. Okay, so basically this is about our page information. But if you have multiple, basically right now we are trying to handle one single page for our application, because we have a customer application. Maybe for your application you will have customer, and you may have another called user. So these variables or these properties here is not very good, but you can do it like this way. So just to want to keep it simple, so we do it like this way. But we can have different maybe page, and you can define the page, a customer page, like this customer. And for your customer, you're going to have a page, and you're going to have a page size. And maybe for your users, you have another page size. It's like this. So you can handle different applications. But for now, I'd like to keep it simple. Okay. So this is our page size. So this is our data object, and I'd like to. So basically, I'd like to get the first page every time we have this page loaded, right? So we can create a function here called created. So every time the page is created or the page is loaded, this function is going to be called, and here we can send a request to our backend to get the data from the backend. Okay, so we say Google script.run. The function we're going to run is called getItems, remember? This is a function, getItems, and we're going to pass some data. The getItems function take a JSON data object, and in this data object we have a sheet name, page size, and the page. Okay, so let's say const parameters equal to none object. It takes a sheet name, which is this dot. This is, and I'd like to add a sheet name here. It's not defined. So customer. So this sheet name, and the page size is this dot page size. So this page size is going to point to this the page size here, okay? And page is this dot page. So this is our data object. We have the sheet name, page size, page, and here I'm going to stringify the JSON object, which is the parameters here. So this function is going to get the data from the backend, okay? And then we're going to handle function like this. So with success handler, so that means we get the data from the backend successfully, and we have a response. This response is actually this response, which is stringified JSON object. Okay, so here we can grab the data from this response. In this response, we have page, we have items, right? Page size, page, and what else? Pages, I think. We have items, pages, page size, and page. Yes, 4 items equal to JSON parse. So parse this response. And if with failure handler, so basically some errors, we only, right now we just console.log error or console error. And after we get all of these items, I'd like to update the items here. So basically these items equal to items, this dot page size equal, or pages equal to pages, and this dot page size equal to page size. Actually, I don't need to update the page size since the page size is don't need to update this one, and we don't need to have this one, and the page also no need to update the page. We only need to update the items and the total count of pages, because maybe not only you are using this application, maybe somebody else also using this application, and they delete or added some new record to the backend, and these pages could be updated. Okay, so in this way, so right now let's try to console.log this dot items and this page. Just console log the items and pages, so what you will see the result, the data we get from the backend. Okay, so let's open the console. Nothing is happening here. That's weird. Created. Okay, so it's not create, it's created. Reload again. So we get the pages is seven pages, and you get the data from the backend ID 1, right? And you got all of this information. And after we have this data, what we can do, we can output to the front end. So that's the next step. So to do that, it is very easy with Vue. Okay, so I'd like to create a div here and give it a class of row, and I'm going to wrap it with another div with a class called column. You don't have to do it. And I'm going to put a table here. And this table with a class, table or stripped. I'm not sure I have a p here. So for this table, first of all, we need to create a table header, right? So I'd like to define the table header here in our object here. So let's say headers. So here, basically, this header is going to be arrays. It's basically the columns of the content, basically the columns in your table. So the first column I'd like to show with text. So the text is going to display values in your table header, and we're going to have a value. The value is going to be the key, which is going to be used to access the data. So basically, this value, this lowercase id, is going to get the data from this ID and the name like this. So let's make a copy of this name, and description. Maybe a copy paste will be easier for me. Description. So let's do it for now for 3 elements here. Okay, so this is the headers for the table. So let's go back to our index file, and here we can output the table head very easily, like this. So table head, we can use a Vue directive called v4, and we say header in headers. So this headers is defined here. Okay, we define here called headers. And when we need to pass a key here, so header dot value is a key because it's unique. And for the content here, I'd like to put the header dot text. So basically, the text is this item, the uppercase ID, and the key. I'm sorry, the key is the value. Okay, you also can use the text here. It's not a big deal. So if I try to reload the page here, probably I should see header, why it's not rendering, header text. Okay, I missed another curly braces. Basically, you need to use a double curly braces like this. But you see the table, right? ID, name, description. So, and I'd like to output the content. Okay, so here we also can use a v4 directive. So this is basically this v4, or this key is basically the view. Okay, this is directives in Vue, and here we're going to use item in items. So we also need to pass a key for this one. So this item.id. So basically this item is basically the record we get from the backend. If you see, we have items, which is the array. We get the items from the backend, and the items we console log here. So if we check the log, we have 15 items. So for the first item, we have ID. We use this ID here for the key. Okay. So for each item, we're going to add a row. Okay. And for each row, And for each cell, which is the table data, right, in this row, here we're going to use another v-for loop, which is, maybe I call it cell in item. Okay, so this is item in this item list, and this cell is in this item. I'm sorry, I need to loop through these headers, I'm sorry. So headers, because we want to use this header, because in this header we have a value. Basically, this value is the object key, right? ID, name, description, like that. So we loop through these headers, and we can grab the data from the item. So item, so the key will be header.value. So in this way, we can get the data from the backend. Sorry. So you see, we just grab the data from the backend like this. And something wrong here. I think we have a P here, maybe stripped. I cannot remember. No. Okay, let's check the class in the Bootstrap. Components, not components. Where is my tables? Okay, let's try to search for stripped. So okay, we need to add a table stripped, not stripped. Table stripped, and then reload the page. So basically, this is basically some classes you need to remember in Bootstrap, but you always can check them in the documentation here. So that's not a big deal. Okay. And I'd like to add pagination here. Okay, so let's go back to the Bootstrap and find the components called pagination, and let's make a copy of this. And go back to our application here, and let's add a row here, maybe div class row, and this div, and let's add a div class called column, and let's just make a paste here. So we don't need to, I think I need to have the previous and the next, and I only need to have one of them. Okay, so this is a page link, and we're going to have some functions to do here. So if I clicked on this previous function here, I'm going to say page. So if page maybe increase or decrease, let's call function decrease. I cannot say decrease page number. Okay, and this one, if I click on next page, I'm going to increase page, increase page number. Okay, so this function and this function is not defined. And what if I click on the page here? So if I click here, what should I do? I should set the page equal to, I should have a value here. Okay, I'm a little lost here. So basically, I'm going to loop through here the for You remember we have pages properties here. So we can create a list of the items. Where is my document here? So v4, so page or page. Actually, we only need to get the index in array pages. And here I'm going to call it index plus 1 because the index is start from the first page. And this increase and decrease function is not created. Let's create these functions. So data, here we can add a property called methods. So we create our function here, decrease, and increase page number. So the decrease this dot page equal to minus minus, so it should be fine. And for this one, page plus plus. Okay, so one is increase, one is decrease. So let's try to load the page and see if we have the pagination here. Why am I going to only get one? Okay, that's weird. Why? That's pretty weird. I have something like this. Okay, I put the for loop in a wrong place. I should put it in the item list. So you have something like this. And I would like to show if which one is active, okay? So to do that, I think we have a class called active. Which one is active? So here, current page, area current page is equal to page. Okay, so basically you can add an active here. And I'd like to add a class. And I'd like to add a key here. Say this is the index for the key. Also, I'd like to add a class here. If the page or index is equal to page, index plus 1. Okay, so this page is basically we defined here. Okay, here current page. Okay, and if the index is 0, that means the first page, and 0 plus 1 is 1. So if in this case we apply a class called active, and if it's not, we do nothing. Let's try it again. So active. So if I click on yes, next, so you see, go to next page like this way. Okay, so this is about the pagination. But you see, when we are trying to do the pagination here, the data is not refreshed, right? So we can do something here because after we change this pagination, we never go back to the backend and refresh the data. So that's the next step we need to do. Where can I do that? So we can do a watch. Let's get the watch. So basically you can watch any properties you'd like to see if the parameter is changed or not. Okay, we can watch something like so we need to watch, basically we need to watch the page, right? As you can see here, we can watch the first name, last name. This is first name, this is last name. And then we watch on the page. So if we have any change on the page, and we're going to call function, and this function, and I'm going to run Google script .run get items, and this time let's make a copy of this function. No, not this one. Where is my parameters? Okay, so if the page number is changed, we trigger this function. Okay, and we get the parameter because this page is changed, and the sheet name, the page size is no change, and we get the items and JSON.parse, JSON string find the parameters, and we can copy this code. They're very similar. Okay, so if we get the data back successfully, we get the items, we get the pages, and we update the page, right? Else, if we get some errors, we're going to show users errors. Right now we just control all the errors. So let's try to see if this is working now. And reload the page. Okay, something is wrong in the code. Let me check const Google script with access for handler get items. Just watch. Watch on the page function. Let's get rid of this page function first. Let's try to see if this error, get rid of this error. Okay, so something wrong here. Let's try to do it again manually one by one. I don't know what I did here, so maybe something wrong here. So this basically is a function, okay, and a const parameter. So this parameter is going to be an object, and with the sheet name is going to be this dot sheet name, and page size called this dot page size, and I'm going to have the page is this dot page. So this is the parameters, and I'm going to run the script, Google script, run dot get items, and the JSON dot string find the data, the parameters, and okay, missed the dot. And if we with success handler, we have the response, and we get the pages and items from the response. So JSON.parse the response, and we update the pages. So this dot pages is equal to pages, and update the items. This dot items is equal to items, and with failure handler, we're going to console log the error. Okay, console error. So let's try to reload the page again. I hope I didn't type anything wrong. Okay, seems like this time is fine. So if I try to click on next page, get items API is wrong, get items. So let's check what's wrong at the back end. Get items failed, get items failed. Undefined was not found in the database. Undefined, okay. So basically that's the tab name was not found. So see the error. Okay, so this name should be uppercase. So always some typos there. So let's go to next page. JSON is not defined. That's pretty weird. Okay, another typo. That's crazy. So you see, this is live coding, so you don't know what you will do. There's sometimes some errors like this. So it seems like this is working, as you can see. Now we start from 16, and now 13, like this. So you see, so basically this right now is working fine. And the only thing I didn't fix is here. Is if I click on this button, nothing happened. Let me check how can I do that. I don't remember what I did. So maybe I can do some code here. Or is my index file? So basically, if I clicked on this button, right? So add click, I'm going to set the page to the index +1. Okay, so I think this time should work. And I'm going to change this. I'm going to add the, maybe I'm going to add a btn here for this page link to make it like a button to click. Where is the class? You know what? I should add this to the list item. Okay, this one is already here, but this button not add them to the a tag. Okay, so this one decrease. So let's check if this is working now. Two. So it's page 2. Page 1 is page 1. So here you have an issue. Because if you are already on page 1, and this should be disabled because you don't have any more pages. So let's try to do it. And let's try to add a class or disabled. So if index is equal to, or not, if page is equal to 1. Okay, so if the page is the first page, I'd like to disable this button to previous, right? And also I'd like to disable this one if the page is equal to pages. So pages is basically the the last page number. And if the page is the last page, we'd like to disable this button. So let's try to reload the page. I still can't click on it. That's weird. Maybe I'd like to disable disabled. It should be disabled. That's weird. Why? Page 1. This one, BDN class, BDN. I think I know. I should add the disable to this a link, I think. So let's try to do it. Disable if page, sorry, this one. Let's try to do it again. I still can't click on it. That's weird. So I think that's basically maybe a class. Let's try to do it. If it's equal to 1, then I'm going to add a class or disabled. Else I'm going to add nothing here. Let's copy this class. If pages, it cannot be disabled. That's weird. So finally, it's disabled. So if I go to page 7, and this next button is disabled. If I go to page 6, right now it's not disabled. Okay. So I think that's almost it for the first video. It's I don't want to keep this too long for you guys to follow. Okay. So if you can follow this video and do these steps, I did every step, and you should be able to create an application like this. Okay. So if you want to add more columns to your application, so you only need to go to the view.js.index file, and you find the header, and you only need to make a copy of this object, and for whatever columns you'd like to show, maybe the city, you only need to update the city and update the text. Whatever text you want to show here is the display value you want to show to the end users. And this key is very important because they are used to identify which column of data we are trying to use. So after I did this change, I reload the page. I have a city column here, and I pull the data out, and we can go to the next page. Okay. And I'd like to stop here and to give you a couple of days to practice, okay? And maybe we'll come back to the next video to show you how to build a form to insert a new record to our database. Okay, so that's it for this video, and thanks for watching, and I hope you can build this application successfully, and see you in the next one.